Welcome to Fanfiction Audiobook. Marvel's Hogwarts Wizards. Chapter 21. As a child from the countryside, Jerry was proficient in various housework and farm work in his previous life. After graduating from university and staying in the city to work, most of the time I cook for myself. It's not because the food outside is not clean or hygienic. Children from the countryside don't care about that. It's just because cooking by yourself can save nearly half of the cost compared to eating outside. With the rise of prices, if you rely on spending money to eat outside in the city, you will need at least 30 more meals for 3 meals a day, which is still average. If you want to eat more meat oil, it is estimated that you need to start at 40. And when he buys vegetables and cooks by himself, especially when he goes to the market to buy vegetables, he will bargain again. Generally, more than 30 yuan can be enough for him to eat for 2 days, and the food is still very good. The children of the poor will be in charge of the family early. This sentence was originally intended to praise the children of the poor for being more sensible and able to endure hardships than the children of the rich. But actually, that's not something to be praised for. Because the child is too obedient and sensible, most of the time it is just because of the cruel life that he has to be obedient and sensible. Which child doesn't want someone to love or act like a baby? The life of the poor has been very hard. Going to school has the pressure of studying, going to work has the pressure of work, getting married has the pressure of life, and after getting old, there is the pressure of the body. The only free and happy childhood without pressure, but you must learn to be in charge early. This is a very real portrayal of Jerry's previous life. So although he can't be called a chef, he is quite good at some home-cooked dishes. As a person with an adult soul, he is of course unwilling to accept Haas's upbringing and care for him, and he will take the initiative to undertake some things within his ability. Such as cooking, housework, and taking Aisha. Of course, part of the reason is that this guy Haas is a typical big boss. If Jerry didn't clean up the house, the whole house would be messed up by Haas and Aisha within 2 days, making his scalp numb just looking at it. As for cooking, the food that Haas cooks is really dumped in the community, the kind that stray cats would not eat. It is conceivable that in the days when Jerry couldn't cook, the food they ate was indescribable. Aisha likes to eat noodles. Let's make a bowl of noodles in clear soup in the morning. Jerry is not used to eating certain Western-style foods, so in order to save time during school, he would cook some Western-style breakfasts. Generally, during weekends or summer vacations like now, he would cook Chinese-style breakfasts most of the time. As for whether Haas and Aisha will not get used to it, it's actually okay. Although they don't like some Chinese-style dishes, there are so many Chinese-style dishes, and there are always some they like to eat, such as clear soup noodles, kung pao chicken, boiled fish, pot-packed pork, and fish-flavored shredded pork. Haas once wondered why Jerry cooks so many Chinese dishes, and Jerry calmly placed in front of Haas the encyclopedia of Chinese dishes that he had already bought from Chinatown. Jerry, you wake up so early again, it's summer vacation, you can actually sleep a little longer, and Dad can order takeaway for you for breakfast. Just as he took out the ingredients he needed from the refrigerator, Haas, who was sleepy, also started to get up to tidy himself up. As a police chief, Haas doesn't have winter and summer vacations, and he still needs to go to work as usual to deal with the follow-up work of yesterday's bank robbery. While turning on the gas stove, Jerry replied, "It's okay, I'm used to it, you can go wake Aisha up when you're done, eat noodles this morning, it won't taste good if it's late." Noodles. Oh, that would be great, I love noodles. Haas tidied himself up and went to Aisha's room. It is not an easy task to get the little guy Aisha up to eat, and it is estimated that Haas will have to spend a lot of effort. "Aisha, get dressed and get up to eat. Has, the god of death, don't even think about taking my ice queen away from the castle, except the move, ice spear of freezing the void." Ouch. Hearing the sound of the father and daughter fighting fiercely coming from the room, Jerry also shook his head with a smile. Heat up a wok with cold oil, and then crack 3 eggs. After the eggs are formed, turn them over and fry until both sides are burnt. Add hot water that has been boiled in advance, soup base. When the water in the pot boils again, take out the eggs and divide them into 3 portions for later use, add the noodles, and add a few small green vegetables picked in advance by the way. When cooking noodles, take out 3 bowls and put in appropriate amount of light soy sauce, mature vinegar, salt, chopped shallots, and the most important lard. Boil the noodles with water for the second time, pour the soup inside into 3 bowls respectively, then add the noodles, eggs and green vegetables in turn, and a bowl of fragrant and refreshing clear soup noodles is completed. At this moment, Haas finally lifted the reluctant Aisha out of the room. That's right, it's literally the kind of lifting in the air by the collar of her jacket, and supervises her to brush her teeth and wash her face. My favorite noodles. Seeing that breakfast is her favorite noodles, Aisha cried out happily. Eat quickly, don't let it get cold in a while. Jerry ruffled Elsa's messy hair. Seriously, Jerry, if you open a Chinese restaurant in the future, the business will definitely be very good. The noodles are much better than the ones I ate in Chinatown. Haas ate the noodles in the bowl with a fork, and couldn't help admiring. Forget it, it's okay to do it once in a while. I don't plan to spend every day in the kitchen. Cooking is just Jerry's survival skill, not a hobby. Then have you ever thought about what you will do in the future? Scientist, policeman, lawyer, or an entrepreneur? Haas took a big mouthful of soup as he spoke. In the eyes of Haas, he has never seen such an outstanding kid as Jerry in his life, so he thinks that as long as Jerry is willing, these occupations should not be a problem. Jerry was stunned when he heard that. Scientists, policemen, lawyers, and entrepreneurs all have experience in previous lives, the ability to learn with little red stars, and magical abilities. These careers that were very desirable in previous lives seem to be easily achieved in this life. But are these really what he wants? In his previous life, he yearned for these occupations not because he liked them, but because he felt that the wages and benefits of these occupations were very good, which was out of reach for him, an ordinary laborer who had nothing to do with him and was not good at communication. But in this life, he doesn't seem to need to worry about money anymore. So what kind of person and job does he want to be in the future? I haven't made up my mind yet, let's talk about it when I grow up. Putting down his chopsticks, Jerry smiled and said his answer. Indeed, he really hasn't made up his mind yet. At least right now, he doesn't have anything in particular he wants to do. He just wants to strengthen himself and protect Haas and Aisha from harm in the future. After breakfast, Haas put on his police uniform, with a rare expression on his face, and called Jerry to the side. What, Dad? Did Aisha break your collection of lightsabers again? Jerry looked at Haas, who had a serious expression, with a look of surprise on his face, which was not Haas' usual style. Ahem, it's not this one. Haas coughed awkwardly, then straightened his face again and said. Jerry, you have been very sensible, kind, and righteous since you were a child. These fathers are very gratified and very proud. But, you are still a child after all. If you encounter the situation like yesterday again, Dad hopes that you can think about protecting yourself first. Dad is only a son like you, if something happens to you. Yesterday at the police station, Haas learned that Jerry and Aisha's school bus had been hijacked by robbers, and he almost exploded. Later, when I found the school bus, and learned from Teacher Bell that Jerry stood up and took the place of others as a hostage, I felt mixed emotions. From the standpoint of the police, Haas certainly encourages and approves of Jerry's behavior. But as a father, how could Haas want his child to do such a life-threatening behavior? Although Jerry is not his own, but for so many years, he has long regarded Jerry as his own son. So in the end it was the father's standpoint, the victorious policeman's standpoint, and he would solemnly warn Jerry that the next time he encounters this situation, as a child, he must protect himself immediately. I know Dad, but I'm actually quite scared. I won't do it next time. Jerry is not really a child, he naturally understood Haas' painstaking efforts, and nodded in agreement without any rebuttal. However, the next time this happens, of course the ordinary kid Jerry will not make a move, but the mysterious wizard boy. That's good, you and Aisha are playing at home and I'm off to work, call me if you need anything. Seeing that there was no resistance or disbelief on Jerry's face, Haas was also slightly relieved. After all, Jerry's behavior is a very commendable behavior. Anyone will praise Jerry in this matter, but he does not agree with it as a father. He is afraid that Jerry will not understand what he said today, and something bad will happen, reverse psychology. But the result, obviously, was very good. Jerry was still as sensible as usual, and extraordinarily mature as usual, and he easily understood his painstaking efforts. Aisha, Dad is going to work, why don't you give Dad a kiss? After talking with Jerry, it was not far from work time, and Haas finally yelled at Aisha, who was watching cartoons in the living room. Aisha did not disappoint Haas. She jumped off the sofa and ran over to slap Haas' big face with a bite. Dad, let's play a game before you go to work. Game? What game? Haas froze for a moment. That is, let's compare to see who hits lighter. If you win, I will let you go to work. Aisha looked at Haas innocently with fluttering eyes. Okay, that's too easy. Haas clenched his fist, and tapped little Aisha's stomach very, very lightly. Now it's my turn. Aisha chuckled, then clenched her little fist, exerted all her strength, and shouted loudly. Sanction of the Ice Queen. Then he slapped Haas on the stomach fiercely, hitting Haas, who was squatting on the ground, and sat down on the ground. Okay, Dad, you won, go to work. After the fight, Aisha continued to watch cartoons without looking back, leaving Haas with a confused face. Jingle. At this moment, the doorbell rang suddenly. Haas opened the door, and a courier boy, holding a long and large cardboard box, asked politely. Excuse me, is Mr. Jerry Carmen at home? At home, what do you want? Haas had a puzzled look on his face. This is his courier, please come out and sign for it. The delivery boy put the cardboard box on the ground. My courier, I didn't buy anything online. Jerry, who heard the sound, had the same doubts on his face. He is an 11-year-old kid, usually either exercising or looking for opportunities to earn a little red star. He doesn't even use the internet very much, so how can he buy anything online, and it's still such a big one? The courier brother took a look at the courier slip. A courier from a lady named Virginia Pepper Potts. The name seems familiar. While signing for the delivery, Jerry recalled the few memories of Marvel movies in his mind. Is it Iron Man's girlfriend? Oh, God, this is Iron Man's suit, it's so cool. Jerry, someone sent you a set of Iron Man's suit, which can't be bought in the world now. When Jerry was trying to remember, Haas had already opened the cardboard box and took out the Iron Man model machine with the same proportion as Jerry, and he looked very excited. Dad, Iron Man promised to give it to me yesterday when Iron Man rescued me. I thought he was joking, but I didn't expect him to give me a set. But, by the way, isn't your favorite lightsaber from Star Wars? Quote. Star Wars is just a movie, but the steel armor is real. I love Tony Stark's armor that can shoot energy cannons. Jerry was also speechless when he heard the words. Never thought that his father Haas is still a fan of Iron Man. Someone once said that, secondary too, can be hereditary, but Jerry still doesn't believe it. It wasn't until he met Haas and Aisha that he realized that, secondary school, can really be inherited. It's just that Aisha likes all kinds of magic, while Haas likes all kinds of mechs and lightsabers. Father, if you like it, I will give it to you. Jerry is actually not very interested in this kind of armor and mechanical things. At that time, he asked Iron Man to want a model, just to enrich his character design, so that Iron Man would not have any doubts about himself. Besides, the model that Iron Man gave him is definitely just a model, there can't be anything that can be used as a weapon. Jerry, Daddy loves you. When Haas heard Jerry's words, he was so happy that he almost jumped up, leaning over to give Jerry a deep, father's kiss. Dad, it's 8:40, and you still have 20 minutes to arrive at the police station, or you'll be late. Jerry reached out and precisely stopped Haas's father's kiss. God, time flies too fast. Jerry, help me put this armor model, don't let Elsa break it for me. Haas looked at the time, quickly handed the steel armor model to Jerry, and rushed out in a hurry. Sure enough, a man will be a teenager until he dies. Jerry couldn't help shaking his head. It's really not a big deal for a 36-year-old, shrewd and capable sheriff in the police station to still like this kind of thing. After all, if someone gave him a nunchuck used by Bruce Lee now, he would definitely not be as calm as he is now. After closing the door, Jerry dragged a very heavy steel armor model and was about to send it to Haas's room. When he looked up, he saw Aisha standing on the sofa, staring at the steel armor model in his hand, showing a malicious look. Smile. Don't hit its attention, or Dad will be angry. Jerry let out a warning helplessly. Aisha snorted tenderly. I don't care about that broken copper and iron, how can it be as powerful as my crystal magic wand? As she spoke, she also raised the wooden stick in her hand, which was inlaid with an oversized glass bead. Elsa's mother died young, and Haas was often busy with police cases and was away from home. Jerry was almost always with her and brought her up. So as long as Jerry issued a warning, Aisha would be very obedient even if she didn't want to. By the way, Jerry, when we were at school yesterday, Anne and Susan said they would come to play at home today. Annie and Susan. Well, two little guys who like to eat. Jerry covered his forehead upon hearing this. Anne and Susan are Aisha's classmates, and they can be regarded as growing up together. The fathers of the two little girls are colleagues of Haas and work in a police station, and they all live in the same community, and the relationship between the three families is also very good. When Elsa's mother died, Jerry was 2 years old and Elsa was 1 year old. Thanks to Annie and Susan's mothers taking turns to help take care of them, they didn't suffer much. When Jerry is a little older and can take care of himself and Aisha, he will rarely trouble the two families. However, the two little guys, Anne and Susan, often meet Aisha to play here during the holidays, and then come here to enjoy the Chinese food cooked by Jerry. Stay here and watch TV honestly, I'll catch up on some sleep. Going out to earn Little Red Star last night wasted a lot of sleep time, and he got up early again in the morning, and now he wants to catch up on sleep before the other two little guys come. Otherwise, if the three little guys get together, it will not be easy for him to catch up on sleep in peace. The ice and snow demon god dormant in the extreme cold far away, come here at the call of my snow queen Aisha. Black blizzard that freezes everything. Turn everything into white snow, ice freezing wave. The burning fire in the depths of hell. In the name of my flame queen, Anne, I call you to come. Burn my enemies and cleanse all the sins in the world, the fire of the world. O omnipotent wind elf, use the atmosphere as your bow and brilliance as your arrow, bear the will of my wind queen, Susan, and cut through the void of the far sky, the hurricane arrow. More than 2 hours later, Jerry was awakened dimly by a few immature voices outside the room. He knew that it was Anne and Susan who had come. Sure enough, as soon as the door was opened, the three blonde girls were standing on the sofa holding their own magic wands, releasing their earth-shattering magic to each other. Jerry big brother is good. Anne and Susan saw Jerry appearing in the living room, and waved their wands happily to Jerry. Don't distract yourself, or your magic power won't keep up, and you will lose to Aisha. Jerry replied seriously. Anne and Susan nodded seriously when they heard the words, and quickly raised their wands again, releasing their magic to Elsa. Seeing this, Jerry smiled like an old father, and then went to the kitchen to prepare the ingredients for lunch. Aside from the fact that he himself ate more because of the greater amount of exercise every day, the three little girls actually ate very little. A simple plate of sweet and sour pork and a plate of scrambled eggs with tomatoes was enough. After lunch, the three little girls began to watch cartoons together, and then took a nap. After digesting for a while, Jerry came to the park in the downstairs community. During the holidays, if he has nothing else to do, he will do basic boxing, leg, footwork, elbow, knee, wrestling, and holding training in the downstairs community. Sometimes fights are not that complicated. If you practice these basics, coupled with the control of strength, speed and reaction ability, you can actually deal with most situations. In the evening, after watching TV with Aisha and Haas for a while, Jerry went back to the room and started a series of strength training such as push-ups, sit-ups and lifting dumbbells. At 12 o'clock in the middle of the night, he was woken up again by the alarm that had been set in advance. Taking the wizard suit he got yesterday, he quietly left the building and started the road of continuing to earn a little red star. In this way, a month passed in a blink of an eye. In the early morning, after Hasley left home to go to work, Jerry rarely caught up on sleep, but watched cartoons with Aisha in the living room. It's just that although his eyes were watching the TV, his attention was focused on the strange panel in front of him. After more than a month of hard work, the number of his little red stars has reached more than 6,000. At this time, the sign of entering the small world on the strange panel also lights up again. This meant that he could finally go to the small world of Harry Potter to learn magic again. After a month of going out to earn little red stars at night, Jerry had a lot of special experiences, and it was these special experiences that made him want to go to the small world to learn more magic as soon as possible. The first thing is to go out. Every time I go out secretly in the middle of the night, avoiding the cameras and security guards is like being a thief. Once I met Haas, who just woke up at night. Secondly, there is no own means of transportation, which is really inconvenient. Especially now that he has gained some fame in the area near the community, and sometimes after saving people, there are still some fans chasing him for photos and autographs. Among them is a female reporter named Lucy who stands out the most. She seems to have grasped Jerry's general range of activities, and spends time squatting around there with a camera every day. It made it very inconvenient for him to go out to earn a little red star recently. What made him speechless the most was that his behavior of doing good deeds did not seem to be recognized by the police. Sometimes he ran too slowly after finishing his work and was chased by the police. Once, he even ran into Haas, who was on the night shift. At that time, in order not to be recognized by Haas and fled quickly, he even released his Superman form. You know, because his magic is getting better and better, the power of several spells is also getting stronger, and now he can easily use magic to subdue gangsters almost every time. There is no need to activate the superhuman form with side effects at all. All, in order to earn Little Red Star more efficiently, he must go to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry to learn many more useful spells. And I have to find a way to bring a broomstick when I come back next time. More than 6,000 Little Red Stars are enough for him to study at Hogwarts for 2 months. However, if you often turn on the refreshing function, it is estimated that you will last for less than 2 months, and then you will have to find a way to earn some red stars in the small world to supplement it. Enter the world of Harry Potter. Jerry, who was sitting on the sofa, didn't hesitate any longer, but with a concentrating mind, he clicked the enter button on the panel. The whole world has once again entered a state of stagnation. The darkness receded, and consciousness returned to the body. Opening his eyes again, Jerry's location is no longer at his home in Queens, New York, but at the Edward Orphanage in London. Taking a deep breath, he pulled up the big suitcase that he had packed before leaving, put it on the trolley, picked up Crookshanks, and started pushing the trolley towards the gate of the orphanage. Because of Professor McGonagall's instructions a month before he left, the current director of the Edward Orphanage had already been waiting there in his car. For the mysterious existence of wizards, not every ordinary person can calmly accept it. Many ordinary people in this period, especially the older ones, probably feel more fear and awe in their hearts when they learn that wizards really exist in this world. Such is the case with the director of the Edward Orphanage. So on the way to send Jerry to King's Cross Station in London, the dean was almost silent and careful. And Jerry didn't go to talk to the dean, because he didn't think it was necessary. The town of Winton is still some distance away from London's King's Cross Station. The car drove for more than 2 hours, and it was not until it was close to 10 o'clock that it barely reached the gate of King's Cross Station. After putting down Jerry and his suitcase, the dean politely said, "Be careful," and hurried away in his own car. It is estimated that if he takes the train in the future, the dean should not choose King's Cross Station again. There is actually a platform specially set up for wizards here, it is simply too scary. The departure time shown on the ticket is 11 o'clock, and it's only a little past 10 o'clock now, which is enough time. Jerry is used to doing everything in advance. It is better to sit on the train a little earlier than to delay time in case of an accident. Taking the ticket given by Professor McGonagall, he entered the station smoothly, and then followed the sign to find the partition wall between the 9th platform and the 10th platform. This is the legendary platform 9 3/4. Standing in front of the wall, Jerry observed that all the nearby passengers would subconsciously avoid it when they passed the wall, so he knew that he must have found the right location. Pushing the trolley, he didn't crash into it like in the movie, but showed a curious look, and walked slowly towards the wall. Why do we have to hit? If you make a mistake, wouldn't you have to bump into a bag? If you walk slowly, it's not like you can't get in. By the way, you can also experience this special experience of passing through the wall. The small cart touched the overturned wall, as if touching the air, and sank in without any hindrance. Is this a kind of space magic, or just a kind of illusion magic? Jerry, who led Crookshanks to push the trolley through the overturned wall, felt a layer of doubt in his heart. He said it was space magic, but he didn't experience the sense of space squeeze that he had when teleporting with Professor McGonagall. He said it was just an illusion, but it didn't feel so similar. Shaking his head, he has only just been exposed to magic for a short time now, and such a profound question is obviously beyond his comprehension. After passing through the overturned wall, a 5-meter-long wrought iron archway appeared before the eyes, and the words, "Platform 9 3/4", were engraved on the top of the archway. Pushing the trolley and continuing to move forward, the magical wizard platform began to slowly unfold in front of his eyes. The first thing that catches the eye is a striking crimson steam train, with a big sign hanging on the side of the train, "Hogwarts Express, 11 o'clock". The open space next to the steam train was densely packed with wizards in wizard robes and all kinds of magical pets. Passing through the crowd, with various voices of farewell and exhortations in his ears, Jerry soon found a slightly empty carriage. Since he came earlier, there are still quite a few vacant seats in most of the carriages. He opened an unoccupied empty box, and after tidying up, he turned on the refreshing function, took out the magic potion, and read it. In order to deal with the crisis of 4 armed robbers, Jerry spent a month studying magic theory and spells. Now that the crisis is over, he also needs to preview other textbooks before school starts. In the magical world of Harry Potter, apart from all kinds of strange spells, he felt that potions were the most useful. A polyjuice potion that allows someone to pretend to be someone else entirely. Veritaserum, which compels the user to tell the truth, and the strongest love potion that causes the user to have a strong obsession with himself. And the Felicity potion that makes everything go well after taking it. These will definitely be very practical when brought to the Marvel world in the future. Therefore, Jerry is still very concerned about potions. Moreover, the price of good potions is also very expensive. If you learn potions well and become a master of potions in the future, then in the entire wizarding world, it can be said that there will be basically no shortage of money. Just look at poor Lupin and rich Snape, and you can see the importance of learning potions well. In terms of strength, Lupin's strength is not much worse than Snape's, the two are at the same level. In terms of background, Lupin's father was still an official working in the Ministry of Magic, but Snape's father was a Muggle, and a Muggle who was alcoholic, bad-tempered, and prone to domestic violence. As time passed, the number of little wizards in the carriage gradually increased. After watching Magic Potions and Potions for half an hour, Jerry turned off the refreshing function, put away the magic book, and began to rest on the seat with his eyes closed. Since turning on the refreshing function puts a lot of burden on his brain, in order to prevent the situation of going directly into deep sleep again, he usually turns it on for half an hour, and then waits for 1 to 2 hours at a time. Restore and then turn it back on. This, while not the most efficient method, is the safest. The most efficient way is to turn it on for half an hour, go directly to deep sleep for half an hour, then turn it on for another half an hour, and then go to deep sleep for half an hour, and the cycle continues. However, as soon as he was in a deep sleep state, he had no vigilance and protection at all. Secondly, his little red star is really not enough to consume 1 little red star per minute, so that it can be turned on for 12 hours a day, and if it is turned on for 12 hours a day, it will consume 720 little red stars. He only has more than 6,000 in total, and he would have to consume 100 of them after staying in the world of Harry Potter for a day. If he didn't spend a few days, he would have to return. The point is, even if you turn on refreshing, relying on self-study to build a car behind closed doors is very inefficient. So his plan is, it is best to use Little Red Star as much as possible to maintain the number of days in this world, and only use Little Red Star to help memory and understanding when learning is critical. Because every time you leave this world, there will be a 1-month cooling off period if you want to re-enter. He can learn as much magic knowledge as possible in the small world and store it in his brain. When he returns to the cool-down period, he can find a way to earn a Little Red Star, and then open more refreshing to summarize his understanding. Jerry Just after Jerry closed his eyes for about 10 minutes, a pleasantly surprised voice suddenly came from not far away. Slowly opened his eyes, turned his head and looked out of the box. A little girl with fluffy hair, wearing a plain sweater and jeans, was struggling to drag a big leather suitcase, standing on the aisle with a slightly surprised expression. It was the little witch whom she met in Diagon Alley last time, Hermione Granger. "Miss Granger, we meet again." Jerry greeted Hermione with a smile, then moved his eyes, stood up and took the box. "There is still space here, sit here." "Thanks." Watching Jerry help her put the heavy suitcase on the shelf above the box, Hermione quickly thanked her. As a little wizard born in a Muggle family, she left her parents and set foot on the mysterious Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry to study alone. Hermione appeared to be very strong on the surface, and often even used a slightly arrogant tone to disguise herself, but there is no trace of apprehension and fear in my heart. After all, she was only 11 years old. Although she will be 12 years old in 18 days, she is still just a little girl who is going out alone for the first time. At this time, on the train to Hogwarts, she met the only wizard of the same age she knew, which made her nervous heart suddenly settle down. Hermione's Sunere personality and super excellent academic performance not only made her have few friends when she was in Hogwarts, but also had almost no friends when she was in Muggle primary school. And Jerry is currently the only one who makes her feel that she doesn't hate herself in the chat and is suitable for being friends. "Wow, what a beautiful cat, is it your pet?" When Hermione sat down and saw the snoring Crookshanks in the seat, her eyes immediately turned into heart shapes. That expression seemed to say, "Isn't this the cat of my dreams? Pretty." Jerry glanced at Crookshanks' persimmon face that seemed to have hit the wall, and twitched slightly. "I have to admit that Crookshanks is a very good cat with strong self-care ability. Jerry hardly needs to worry about anything. He can even solve the problem of eating by himself most of the time, and sometimes he will give Jerry a little bit. And she's very smart, never pooping in the room. But if you want to say that it looks beautiful, Jerry really disagrees. It can only be said that the aesthetics between people are not the same. Just like the bull terrier, the kind that looks like Sun X-Lay, the chihuahua, the kind that is cool and alien, the Cornish Rex cat, exactly like Lord Beerus's kind. These are ugly pets in the eyes of the public, but there are still many people who think they look very cool. So one radish and one hole, Hermione just likes Crookshanks' face, so there is no way. Here, Miss Granger didn't buy a pet." Jerry picked up the sleeping Crookshanks directly and handed it to Hermione. Hermione hastily took it tenderly and held it in her arms. Crookshanks, who was disturbed, shook his beard in dissatisfaction, but when he felt Hermione's heart full of kindness towards him, he continued to sleep peacefully. "Just call me Hermione. When I bought books in the bookstore, besides the necessary textbooks, I also bought a lot of extracurricular magic books, so I don't have any extra money to buy pets." Hermione replied regretfully while stroking Crookshanks. That answer, very Hermione. To become a super academic, Hermione not only has the talent that ordinary wizards can't match, but also has the hard work that most wizards of the same age don't have. "So, Hermione, you must have learned a lot about magic in advance." There was a little praise in Jerry's tone. Hermione immediately raised her little chin proudly. "Of course, I not only memorized all the textbooks of the first grade, but also tried a few spells at home, and all of them worked, and I also finished reading Modern History of Magic, The Rise and Fall of Dark Magic, Important Magical Events of the 20th Century." "Wow, you are such a little genius." Jerry couldn't help but let out an admiration upon hearing this. His words were not sarcasm, but a genuine compliment from the heart. Not to mention other things, just memorizing all the textbooks within a month, this memory is very comparable. Although Jerry also wrote down the textbooks of the 4 courses, it was all because of the refreshing function of the panel. You must know that when you were in school in your previous life, not to mention previewing and reciting textbooks for the next semester, even during the 2-month summer vacation, reviewing and reciting the ancient poems and classical Chinese that you have learned in the previous semester is not an easy task. Being praised by Jerry twice in a row, Hermione's face turned slightly red even though she was very happy in her heart. After all, if you are young, it will be a little embarrassing to be praised all the time. Because of Hermione's arrival, Jerry didn't continue to close his eyes but chatted happily with Hermione. Of course, the main direction of chatting is basically about all kinds of magic knowledge in textbooks. Although Jerry used the function of boosting the brain to memorize all the books such as Magic Theory and Standard Spells, Elementary, and learned all the first-year spells in it, and it is definitely easier to use than Hermione. Much more skilled. However, that doesn't mean that he has thoroughly understood all the content in the textbook. It's like a modern person suddenly got an ancient book that was all recorded in classical Chinese. Although he memorized all the contents in it, he can roughly understand what kind of story it tells through his own understanding. But in fact, that is to say, I understand the general idea. If there is no professional guidance to explain many detailed things, it is impossible to understand them at all. Moreover, after reading the same book with the same content, different people may not understand exactly the same things. A Journey to the West. Some people read the adventure story of Tang Seng and his 4 apprentices going to the West to learn Buddhist scriptures after 1,000 fortunes, and some people read A Spirit That Dared to Challenge the Shackles of the Feudal Hierarchy. Others see the machinations and tricks hidden behind various events, the calculations of the saints who use the heavens and the earth as a chessboard, and everything as a chess piece. And the human sophistication that every sentence is a matter of gods and immortals in the sky, but utilitarianism and secular heart can be seen everywhere. However, some people simply saw monkeys and all kinds of beautiful female fairies and queens. Therefore, people need to communicate and learn from each other in order to be able to embrace all rivers and make progress together. With Hermione's talent, she learned most of the spells by herself and read a lot of magic books in just 1 month before the start of school. She must have her own unique views on magic, so how can there be no gain from communicating with her? That's why Jerry took the initiative to let Hermione sit in his box just now. During the chat, Hermione also gradually discovered that Jerry was actually a kindred spirit like herself. Although he didn't have as many textbooks as he had memorized, he had a lot of his own opinions on magic theory and various spell knowledge. Immediately, I became interested, and at the same time, I recognized Jerry more in my heart. As the saying goes, it's too much if you don't speculate, but it's less than 1,000 glasses of wine when you meet a bosom friend. Jerry and Hermione talked more and more vigorously, and the more they chatted, the more engrossed they became. Before he knew it, he didn't even notice that the Hogwarts Express had started to leave the station. "Hello, is there anyone here? The other places are full." At this moment, a stuttering voice suddenly sounded, interrupting the magic communication between Jerry and Hermione. In the aisle of the box, a round-faced and chubby little wizard was holding a golden-backed toad in his left hand and pulling the suitcase in his right hand. His eyes glanced at the empty seat opposite Jerry and Hermione from time to time. "No one, you can sit across from us," Jerry replied with a smile. The boy immediately happily pushed the suitcase to the corner of the box, then sat down with the toad in his arms. My name is Neville Longbottom, I'm a freshman this year, you can call me Neville." After the boy sat down, he introduced himself nervously. "Jerry Carmen, Hermione Granger." Jerry and Hermione glanced at each other. They could see that the boy opposite was a little nervous, so they smiled and introduced themselves at the same time. Perhaps feeling the kindness in Jerry and Hermione's tone, the boy gradually relaxed and joined Jerry and Hermione's chat. However, since Neville hadn't previewed the textbook yet, the 3 of them stopped talking about magic at this time, but talked about their respective births and family situations. When talking about his family, Neville, who was a little nervous, was no longer so restrained. "I was brought up by my grandmother, but all these years, our family has treated me like a muggle, and my uncle Algie always tried to force me to show my magic by taking advantage of people's unsuspecting." Then, Neville talked about his tragic experience of being thrown into the Black Lake by his uncle Algie and almost drowned, and thrown from upstairs and almost fell to death. "I heard Jerry and Hermione say that the elders of the pure-blood wizard family really know how to play." In fact, according to Jerry's knowledge, Neville's parents seemed to be both Aurors. During the First Wizarding War, they were captured by Death Eaters and tortured to the point of insanity with the Cruciatus Curse. They were admitted to St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Injuries and Injuries. In order to make Neville, who was only 1 year old, forget the cruel scene of his parents being tortured, his grandma cast a forgetting curse on him. It may be because Neville was too young at that time, which caused side effects after being cast on the forgetting curse. My mind is broken, and I become very forgetful. In other words, can a 1-year-old really remember things? Jerry has also heard people say that Neville is actually the prophesied son in Professor Trelawney's prophecy, because Neville's parents are both Auror's policemen in the wizarding world who have attacked Voldemort at least 3 times, and Neville was also born in July moon. Even when it was just born, it was able to magically make the blanket wrap itself more tightly. If it wasn't for the damage to the mind caused by the sequelae of the forgetting curse, and the inability to smoothly control the magic power in the body, Neville's magic talent might not be worse than Voldemort. However, these are actually not important things to Jerry. He doesn't care who is the son of prophecy. How to seek benefits and strengthen his own strength through the general plot trend he knows is what he has to consider. After Neville finished talking, Hermione also began to chat about various anecdotes about her childhood life before receiving the admission letter, and the changes after receiving the admission letter. Unlike Neville, who came from a family of pure-blood wizards, Hermione lived in the suburbs of London. Her parents were both dentists, and she was a pair of ordinary muggles who didn't understand magic. Perhaps it was because she was not born into a wizarding family that Hermione always wanted to prove herself so much. But the income of the dentist is considerable, and her family also belongs to that kind of happy and harmonious type, so her childhood was actually very happy. After both of them finished speaking, they turned their eyes to Jerry at the same time. Jerry froze for a moment, then immediately reacted and said, "I am an orphan. I was abandoned in an orphanage since I was a child. I don't know whether my parents are wizards or muggles. I only know the existence of magic when I received the admission letter from Hogwarts." Orphan. Neville and Hermione looked at Jerry with sympathy gradually. Although Neville's parents are both in the hospital, he still has his grandmother, uncle, and aunt who love him, and he hasn't suffered much since he was a child. Although Hermione was born in a Muggle family, she was also an only child. She was the jewel in the palm of her family since she was a child, and her childhood life was not unhappy. In contrast, Jerry's status in this world is indeed a bit miserable. I didn't expect that Jerry's life experience is so miserable, but he can still face life with a smile, and he is so positive and optimistic. He is really brave and strong. Hermione saw that when Jerry told about his life experience, he didn't have that kind of sad and uncomfortable expression at all. Instead he showed open-mindedness and sunshine everywhere, and he felt both sympathy and admiration in his heart. "Honey, do you want to buy something to eat?" At this moment, there was a loud clicking noise in the aisle, followed by a smiling woman with dimples, pushing open the door of their box. It turned out that the 3 of them were chatting vigorously, and before they knew it, it was past 12 o'clock at noon. Looking at the various snacks on the trolley, the 3 of them suddenly felt their stomachs growling. "I want a chocolate frog." Neville got up first and ran towards the cart. Hermione and Jerry also got up at the same time, and started picking on the trolley right after. In the end, Neville returned to his seat with a bunch of chocolate frogs, Hermione just took a cauldron cake, and Jerry asked for 3 pumpkin pies and a box of bibbies. Hogwarts gave Jerry 100 gold galleons a year as a bursary. After buying all the necessities, there were 4 or 5 gold galleons left, which was enough for his daily expenses for a year. You know, the board and lodging at Hogwarts are free, and these magical snacks are not expensive. For 3 pieces of pumpkin pie and a box of BB's multi-flavored beans, Jerry only spent 1 silver sickle and 15 copper nuts. The 3 pieces of pumpkin pie were used by himself to satisfy his hunger. Compared with the snacks of Chi Baba, he still prefers to eat the staple food of pumpkin pie. As for the box of BB's multi-flavored beans, he plans to keep it and give it to his sister Aisha when he returns. BB multi-flavored beans, the famous product of the world's jelly bean company, are said to have more than 700 different flavors. From the common flavors of chocolate, strawberry thin, mint candy, orange marmalade, etc., to the special flavors of spinach, pork liver and tripe, as well as the heavy flavors of vomiting, earwax, and snot. Presumably, my sister must like this magical snack very much. Crackling. Neville stretched out his hand to hold the chocolate frog that jumped onto the table from the box, and then put it into his big mouth, bit off the head of the chocolate frog in one bite, chewed and swallowed it into his stomach. So cruel. As for the golden-backed toad-life, who was lying next to Neville, watched Neville eating chocolate frogs, he shivered silently, turned around, and jumped off the seat quietly, almost leapfrog disappeared. Neville, you seem to like eating chocolate frogs. Hermione ate the cake in her hand. Watching Neville eat 6 chocolate frogs in a row, she couldn't help but wonder. I don't really like it either, but it contains pictures of famous wizards, which I have already collected. Oh, what to do, I forgot how many pictures I have collected, and there are still those pictures that I haven't collected yet. Neville took out a picture from the box and placed it in front of the two of them. He was just halfway through the explanation when he suddenly became sad. Sure enough, this combination of blind box opening and collection addiction is very useful for people of any age and country, even wizards are no exception. Jerry remembers that when he was a child in his previous life, he seemed to have only a little pocket money, so he bought the Little Raccoon instant noodles. He didn't like to eat it much, but just to collect the water margin 108 cards inside. Although it was not collected until the end. Shaking his head to interrupt the memory, he and Hermione looked at the picture on the table together. I saw that the picture showed an old man who was obviously very old, because his hair and beard were all white. The old man has a long crooked nose, a pair of half-moon glasses, and a purple magician's robe. He looks very kind. A name is written under the card, Albus Dumbledore. It's Dumbledore. Hermione let out an exclamation when she saw the name. Jerry raised his hand and turned over the picture, and a series of introductions about Dumbledore appeared on the back of the picture. Albus Dumbledore, current headmaster of Hogwarts. Widely regarded as the greatest wizard of our time. Dumbledore's notable contributions include: defeated the dark wizard Grindelwald in 1945. Discovered 12 uses of dragon blood. Fruitful in alchemy with partner Nicole Flamel. Professor Dumbledore is fond of chamber music and bowls. Defeating the dark wizard Grindelwald in 1945 is probably the last achievement Loudeng wanted. Jerry, who has watched Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, knows that Dumbledore and Grindelwald are lovers who love each other deeply. Turning over the card again, the portrait of Dumbledore on the front has disappeared, probably he went to another card. Neville, eat less chocolate frogs from now on. Jerry looked away, looked at Neville who was still trying to remember how many pictures he had collected, and kindly reminded him. Why? Neville looked puzzled. Because eating too much chocolate makes you fat, and you may never collect all the pictures. Jerry glanced at Neville's chubby figure. It's hard to find a girlfriend if you're too fat. By the way, have you decided which college to go to? Seeing Dumbledore's picture, Hermione seemed to think of something, and suddenly became emotional. However, before Jerry and Neville could answer, she immediately murmured like a small machine gun. I'd like to get Gryffindor, they say it's the best. I've heard Dumbledore graduated there himself, but I guess Wenclaw isn't too bad. Well, it turns out that what she said was actually a question sentence. After Hermione babbled about science, Neville finally mustered up the courage to raise his hand. I hope it's a Gryffindor too, because Grandma said my parents were both Gryffindors. Jerry, what about you, which college do you want? After listening to Neville's answer, Hermione immediately nodded in agreement, and then turned her gaze to Jerry. Jerry hesitated for a moment, and finally replied with a smile. That must be Gryffindor. After thinking for so long, Jerry has gradually made a decision in his heart about the branch. Originally, he thought that it would be best to pull Wenclaw or Hufflepuff, so that he could learn magic and improve himself quietly without any danger. But after thinking about it, he is so lacking in little red stars, and since he can earn little red stars in the small world, it seems good for him to join the reckless academy that likes to make trouble. And the Dean of Gryffindor, Professor McGonagall, although he is a bit more serious, is also quite nice, and his impression of him last time was also very good. As long as he makes good use of the refreshing function in the later stage, his academic performance will naturally not be bad, and he may be able to ask Professor McGonagall to start a small problem. Just like in the 3rd grade, Professor McGonagall applied for the time turner for Hermione to assist her learning. The point is, he wants to get a good broomstick before his next comeback. Without a suitable means of transportation, his efficiency in earning little red stars in the Marvel world is too low. And if he joins Gryffindor, he will be able to intercept the memory ball before Harry according to the original plot, and show off a wave of gorgeous operations in front of Professor McGonagall. In this way, Professor McGonagall will break the rules and let him enter the Gryffindor team, and give him a Nimbus 2000 out of his own pocket. In this way, the fastest broomstick in the world is now available for free. As for whether his level of flying broomstick will be bad, there is no need to worry about it at all. What is the test of a Quidditch game? Is it the level of magic in the body? Is it the ability to use magic? Of course not, otherwise, Harry, who just entered school and doesn't know any magic, how could he be valued as an exceptional admission? What the Quidditch game really tests is the coordination of the limbs and the ability to respond to the body. So physical fitness and keen five senses are the most important. In fact, in the same way, a wizard who is good at fighting also needs not only good magic ability, but also certain talents in physical fitness, reaction ability and other aspects. Just like in terms of learning ability, in terms of the use and understanding of magic, Hermione beat Harry by a few blocks. But in terms of combat, Harry's actual combat ability is much stronger than Hermione's. So Harry got an exception to join the Quidditch team as soon as school started, but Hermione's broomstick lessons were not very satisfactory. Physical fitness and keen five senses are Jerry's strengths. As long as he can control the broomstick to take off, the Superman state is turned on, and the five senses and body reach the limit in an instant. Let alone the talented Harry, even the top Quidditch players, Jerry has the confidence to completely abuse each other. And when he gets the Nimbus 2000 for free, he can directly help Gryffindor win the Quidditch trophy in the first year, fulfilling Professor McGonagall's wish to defeat Slytherin in the Quidditch match. You must know that according to the original book, the Gryffindor team didn't really get the Quidditch trophy until Harry was in his third year. In the first year, Harry was in a coma in the school hospital for preventing Voldemort from stealing the Philosopher's Stone, and missed the game against Lowen-Keluo, which led to the final disastrous defeat of the Gryffindor team. In the second grade, because the Chamber of Secrets was opened, the Quidditch competition was cancelled directly. It wasn't until the third year that the Gryffindor team really beat the other three colleges and won Hogwarts' rare Quidditch Cup. So after some final thinking, he felt that joining Gryffindor Academy would be in his best interest right now. At the sorting ceremony tonight, choose Gryffindor. Hearing that Jerry had the same heart for Gryffindor, Hermione had a happy smile on her face. For Jerry, who is such a rare and very close friend, she should hope that she can study in the same college. Lefou, where have you been, Lefou, my Lefou is gone again. At this moment, Neville on the opposite side suddenly burst into screams, scaring Hermione into a wit. Neville, what's the matter, Lef, what's wrong with you? Seeing Neville lying on the ground crying and looking around for something, Hermione hurriedly got up and asked. Neville searched around in the box, and finally sat on the ground weakly and sobbed. My raffle is the toad that my uncle bought me as a reward for being able to go to Hogwarts. It always wanted to escape from me, and now it's gone again. Neville, cheer up. Jerry and I will get you back. Although Hermione was a bit arrogant, she was actually a very warm-hearted and kind girl. Seeing Neville crying sadly, she immediately pulled Jerry to encourage her. Neville, don't worry, the train is only this big, and your raffle can't fly, so he can't escape the train. He must be hiding in some box near here. Let's ask one by one, and we'll find it soon. Jerry knew that Neville's toad couldn't be lost, but since Hermione had spoken, he could only shrug his shoulders to comfort her. Hearing the comfort of the two, Neville finally stopped sobbing and stood up from the ground. It's almost time to get to the station, let's change into school uniforms and go out to find Rafe. Looking out the car window at the fields and the fading sky, Jerry took his and Hermione's large suitcases off the shelf. After a while, the three put on new Hogwarts robes and walked out of the box. Jerry, look over there, I'll take Neville and look here. In the aisle, Hermione said hello to Jerry, and then led Neville to ask one box after another on the right. And Jerry had no choice but to turn around and start looking to the left. Just think of it as earning a little red star as a subsidy. This kind of work of helping others find lost items can also earn little red stars, but it is relatively small, usually 1 or 2. This little thing is really hard to find. 20 minutes later, Jerry checked all the boxes on the left, but he still couldn't find the missing life. However, this trip he saw many little wizards with familiar names. For example, George and Fred, who look exactly the same, even their mother Mrs. Molly can't tell them apart, are said to have troll blood, Marcus Flint, the captain of the Slytherin Quidditch team, and so on. Crookshanks. Returning to the box he was in, Jerry just opened the door when he saw Crookshanks' beating rifle. It turned out that when the three of Jerry went out from one box to another to inquire about the whereabouts of life, the clever Crookshanks also helped, and soon found Laugh in a hidden corner of the train. In the box at this time, Crookshanks just knocked Laugh back to the original place with his claws when he jumped up to prevent Laugh from escaping again. Wingardium Leviosa. The wand pointed at LeFou, who kept trying to jump up and escape, and a levitation spell floated him in the air. Jerry picked up Crookshanks, licked it twice, and took out some of the small dried fish that he had brought out from the orphanage before, and fed it to him as a reward. "Let me take you to Neville, he is in a hurry." After lifting the levitation spell, Jerry grabbed left the box again, and walked towards the direction where Hermione and Neville had just left on the right side of the train. Perhaps because he heard that he was going to find Neville, Raffles' 4 frog legs suddenly kicked around and struggled violently in Jerry's hands. Seeing this, Jerry frowned, stopped and lifted Raffle, narrowed his eyes, and said murderously, "Braised toad, dry pot toad, garlic toad, flavored toad, boiled toad. I like to eat toad meat the most, and then make various medicinal materials from the peeled toad skin." Raffles' frog body shook, and immediately retracted the 4 frog legs and put them under the stomach, and began to tremble. Seeing that Rafe was no longer struggling, Jerry nodded in satisfaction and continued to look for Neville and Hermione. What he said just now was just to frighten LeFou. LeFou's appearance is the same as the toad that was common in the fields of his hometown in the previous life. Who would eat a pimple-covered toad? However, if it is replaced by a bullfrog, then he will have to think about it. After all, bullfrogs are really fragrant. "Neville, your life." After walking through 2 carriages, Jerry quickly saw Neville and Hermione walking back, so he waved to Neville with Left's frog legs. "Thank you Merlin, thank you Jerry, my Raffle." Seeing Rafe, Neville immediately stretched out his arms and ran towards Jerry in ecstasy. "You have to thank Crookshanks for helping you find Left." Jerry smiled and handed rifle to Neville. "Crookshanks is really capable." At this time Hermione also followed up, and said to Jerry with a little pride, "Jerry, who do you think I just saw?" "Who?" Jerry's heart moved, and he already had the answer. Harry Potter, is the boy who survived the catastrophe, the Harry Potter who defeated the Dark Lord at birth." Hermione looked a little agitated. "Harry Potter?" Jerry pretended to be puzzled. "It was mentioned in Modern History of Magic, The Rise and Fall of Dark Magic, and Important Magical Events of the 20th Century. Oh, I forgot that these are extracurricular books I bought, you haven't read them." Hermione suddenly remembered that Jerry was not from a wizarding family like herself, and hadn't read as many history books about the wizarding world as she had. "Let me take you there to get to know each other." Unexpectedly, in the movie, Hermione was quite calm when she met Harry for the first time, but in fact, like other little wizards, she was also a little excited. It seems that Harry Potter's name is indeed very influential in the wizarding world. "No problem, I quite like making friends." Jerry didn't refuse. Now that he has decided to go to Gryffindor, it seems like a good choice to make friends with Harry in advance. You know, as the future savior in Dumbledore's eyes, Harry is the most valued by Dumbledore at Hogwarts, and a good relationship with Harry is definitely a plus for Dumbledore. Besides, Hogwarts can only recruit so few students every year, and even fewer students are divided among the 4 houses. Maybe he will be assigned to share a dormitory with Harry at night. "Go, he's in the front car." Hermione pulled Jerry and Neville and trotted towards the carriage behind him. However, when they reached the door of Harry's box and were about to open the door, there were sounds of arguing inside. "You should be gentle, or you'll go the same way as your parents. They don't know what's good or bad. If you hang out with people like the Weasleys or the Hagrids, you'll be affected." "Can you say that again?" "Oh, you want to fight, don't you?" Hermione, who walked in the front, opened the door, and Jerry looked inside. At this time, there were not the two people Hermione had just mentioned in the box, but 5 boys confronting each other with swords drawn. One of them, standing by the seat, was a boy with black hair and green eyes, a pair of glasses, and a lightning scar on his forehead, which was obviously Harry. As for the boy standing next to Harry, with the Weasley red hair and blue eyes, it was Ron for sure. Turning to look at the 3 opposite them, a puzzled look flashed across Jerry's face. A young man with pale blonde hair and a pale oval face, followed by 2 stout followers. How could this combination look a bit like the trio of Harry's nemesis Malfoy? However, he didn't remember that there was a little Malfoy trio in the movie who troubled Harry and Ron on the train. What happened? Is it because it's been too long to remember, or because of his appearance, there was a butterfly effect, or, is there some reason he doesn't know? What are you doing? Are you going to fight? You are going to cause trouble before you even get to school. Hermione, who walked in front of the 3 of them, looked at the situation in the box with a serious expression on her face. There are 3 helpers here, do you think it's useful to have more people? Seeing the 3 of Jerry appearing at the door, Malfoy's calm face changed slightly, and he took a step back, putting the tall and strong Goyle and Crabbe in front of him. However, Gore and Crabbe obviously didn't pay attention to the little peas who were a head shorter than them in front of them, and they took a step forward aggressively. One stopped Harry and Ron, and one stopped Hermione, Jerry, and Neville. Seeing the tall Crabbe coming to the door, Hermione's body tensed subconsciously, and Jerry temporarily let go of his doubts when he saw this, and stretched out his hand to pull Hermione behind him. We don't want to fight, but this doesn't seem to be your box. Yes, you are not welcome here, please leave here. On the other side, although Harry was a little afraid of Goyle's big man, he bravely responded loudly when he heard Jerry's words. But we don't want to leave, do we, Goyle, Crabbe? We've eaten up everything we ate, and you seem to have plenty left here, wait until we're done eating. Little Malfoy, who was standing in the middle, pointed at the various snacks scattered on the table in the box, and winked at Goyle and Crabbe. Goyle and Crabbe immediately understood. Goyle pulled the thin Harry away with his left hand, and greedily reached for the snacks on the table with his right hand. And Crabbe raised his hands and slammed towards Jerry, who was standing at the door, as if he wanted to push Jerry, Hermione and Neville behind him to the ground at the same time. What? 2 screams sounded in the box at the same time. Not from Harry and Jerry, though, but from Goyle and Crabbe. It turned out that when Goyle reached out to grab the snacks, Ron's pet Banbon, who was hidden in the snacks, jumped out and bit Goyle's finger. On the other side, Jerry saw Crabbe reaching out to push him, with a sneer on his face, and stretched out his hands at the same time. He didn't want to compete in strength with the tall and strong Crabbe, but interlocked his fingers with him, and then when Crabbe was in a daze, his wrist suddenly exerted force, and he fell to his knees on the ground. 10 fingers connected to the heart, Crabbe's 10 fingers were pressed hard by Jerry at the same time, tears of pain were shed immediately. The body of the wizard is different from that of ordinary people, missing arms and legs is not a big deal, so Jerry didn't show much mercy when he shot, which made Crabbe cry. You haven't said clearly yet, don't rush to leave. Seeing that Goyle and Malfoy, who had thrown off Scabbers, wanted to run away from him in a panic. Jerry sneered, first hooked Goyle with his right foot and tripped Goyle to the ground, then freed one hand to use the gold wire-wrapped wrist in the grabbing hand, instantly restraining Malfoy. Thus, such a scene appeared in the box. Jerry interlocked Crabbe's 10 fingers with his left hand, and he fell to his knees in tears. His right hand twisted Malfoy's arm to his back, pressing him so painfully that he couldn't get up, and he knocked out a tooth under his foot. Goyle screamed while clutching his bitten finger. The scene is very impactful. You can see it by carefully looking at the reactions of the other 4 people. Harry next to the seat and Ron, who had picked up Scabbers, swallowed simultaneously, while Hermione and Neville in the aisle even opened their small mouths and stared wide-eyed. Among them, if anyone was the most surprised, it must be Hermione. Because she has been in contact with Jerry the longest, in her eyes, Jerry has always been a very gentleman, polite and gentle boy. Before, if she didn't ask, she was called Ms. Granger. Jerry, why don't you let them go first, they seem to be in pain. Seeing that the 3 of them seemed to be in tears, Hermione suggested cautiously. Oh, really? That's really embarrassing, I seem to be a bit harsher, in fact, I'm the person who doesn't like fighting the least, it's just like you just now, it's difficult for me." Hearing this, Jerry did not refuse Hermione's proposal, but smiled and explained to the little Malfoy trio, and then slowly let go of his hands and feet. Unfortunately, after hearing Jerry's explanation and seeing his smiling face, the little Malfoy trio shuddered at the same time, and retreated to the corner next to the box door in horror. "I stopped you just now, just to tell you that violence can't solve the problem. We can calm down and talk slowly about anything. It is not advisable to use violence to snatch snacks like you just did. If you want to eat snacks, you can politely borrow some from these two students. I believe that as long as you have a good attitude, they will refuse." Quote. Maybe because he felt that he had just started a little too hard, Jerry coughed and explained again. Then he turned his head to look at Harry and Ron and asked, "Two students, do you think I'm right?" Harry and Ron were taken aback, and immediately nodded their heads like chickens pecking rice. "Look, if you had a better attitude just now, they would be willing to share some snacks with you." Jerry turned his head again to look at the trembling little Mayerfew three gathered in the corner next to the box door, and then his tone was as gentle as possible. "We are all freshmen this year, and maybe we may be assigned to a college. In this way, we can shake hands together, and we will be good friends in the future. Why, you don't want to?" After seeing Jerry stretch out his hand, he looked towards him with sharp eyes. The expressions of the little Malfoy trio changed, and they quickly got up and stretched out their right hand to put on the back of Jerry's hand. And Harry and Ron saw Jerry turn his head to look at him, and after looking at each other, they also stepped forward and put their hands on it. "Hermione, you come here too, we will have more atmosphere together." Jerry waved at Hermione and Neville with his free left hand. Hermione dragged the equally confused Neville over slowly, hesitated for a moment, and put her hand on it. "Okay, let's join hands, heart to heart, forget this unpleasantness, learn together, make progress together, and become the best business together. Oh, no, the best wizard. For a while, I almost yelled out the business slogan of the company in my previous life." Seeing the little Malfoy trio fleeing after shaking hands, Jerry smiled and turned to look at Harry and Ron. "Hello, my name is Jerry Carmen. Harry Potter. Ron Weasley." Although Harry and Ron hadn't reacted enough in their brains, they still responded subconsciously. "The train will arrive at Hogwarts in 5 minutes. Please leave your luggage on the train, and we will send you to school." At this moment, an announcement suddenly sounded throughout the train. "Nice to meet you, but the station is coming soon, we need to go back to the box to clean up, see you later." Hearing the reminder that he was about to arrive at the station, Jerry waved to the two, pulled Hermione and Neville to turn around and walked out of the box. "Jerry, thanks for helping us just now." Just when the three of them were about to walk out of the box, Harry and Ron, who had reacted, thanked Jerry at the same time. "You're welcome, we are all classmates, and I really like to convince people with virtue." Jerry turned his head and winked at Harry and Ron, then pulled Hermione and Neville and disappeared through the door of the box. Convincing people with virtue. Colons rose above Harry and Ron's heads. Was that just convincing people with virtue? "Jerry, are you good at fighting?" In the box, Hermione looked at Jerry, who stuffed Crookshanks into the cat cage, and asked curiously. On the surface, Hermione is a person who attaches great importance to the rules, but as a Gryffindor, she is also someone who is willing to break the rules in order to help her friends. It's like she set fire to Professor Snape's clothes, and Harry and Ron went to fetch the Philosopher's Stone, stole Professor Snape's ingredients to make Polyjuice Potion, and so on. So, just now, in order to help Harry and Ron, Jerry took the initiative to teach the behavior of the three groups of young Malfoy, and Hermione actually agreed in her heart. It's just that she was a little curious about why Jerry was so good at fighting. Jerry rolled his eyes, and Hermione, as the next one, and possibly the only one who could communicate with him and promote his progress in magic, he felt that he still needed to establish a relatively good image in front of her. Let's talk about it. Frowning, Jerry pretended to sigh, and explained sadly. "Actually, I wasn't good at fighting at first, but there's no way, I was born in an orphanage, and the orphanage." Next, he didn't elaborate. However, the clever Hermione had clearly understood something from Jerry's expression, and there was a look of sympathy in her eyes. Sometimes, no matter how true and detailed the lie is, it may not be as convincing as the other party's own brain. At this moment, in Hermione's mind, there was already a sad story about Jerry being abandoned in an orphanage when he was born, and being bullied constantly as he grew up, so that he developed a fighting ability. "It's okay, Jerry, it's going to be fine." Hermione stepped forward and gave Jerry a big hug. Yes, it will get better." Although Jerry didn't know what Hermione had imagined, but judging from the situation, it should be a good thing, so he didn't say anything more. "The car has stopped, we can get out of the car." Neville on the side didn't have Hermione's imagination. He was in a state of confusion from the beginning to the end. When he saw the train stop, he reacted and shouted at Hermione and Jerry, who were embracing each other. As the train approached the station, the originally empty aisle was also crowded by the little wizards who came out of the boxes one after another. Jerry, Hermione, and Neville squeezed their way through the crowd with difficulty, and got off the train amidst the crowd. Hogsmeade Station, the bottom station of the Hogwarts Express, is also a very small platform. First-year freshmen come here. Jerry, Hermione, and Neville crowded into the crowd on the platform, and when they didn't know which direction to move, a deafening voice suddenly came from the far left of the platform. "Turn around to look. I saw a Titan about 3 or 4 meters tall with a big beard, holding a magic lamp and shouting loudly towards the crowd." Then Hagrid. With such a body shape, at Hogwarts, he was also the half-breed Titan and wizard, Rubeus Hagrid, known as the Gamekeeper. The three struggled their way through the crowd, and finally stood beside Hagrid along with all the other freshmen. This also included Harry, Ron, and the little Malfoy trio standing away from Jerry. Hagrid smiled and said a few words to Harry alone, and then, carrying a magic lamp, he led all the first-year students along a steep and narrow path to the left of the station. "Hermione, if it's hard to walk, you can grab my arm." Seeing that Hermione was not walking smoothly, Jerry offered his arm. Since it was a downhill road, and the road surface was very uneven, the little wizard was also bumping and looking forward to walking. "Turn this corner, and you'll be seeing Hogwarts for the first time soon." After walking for about 20 minutes, Jerry heard Hagrid, the leader in front, turn around and remind them loudly. Sure enough, when they reached the end of the path and made a turn, the dense woods on both sides that originally blocked their sight disappeared. What appeared before their eyes was a huge black lake. On the high hillside at the end of the lake, a majestic medieval castle with a mysterious atmosphere stands there quietly. There are many spears on the castle, and windows flicker under the starry sky. Especially against the backdrop of the Black Lake, the castle looked extraordinarily huge, which made all the little wizards, including Jerry, look amazed. When I watched movies in my previous life, although I felt that Hogwarts Castle was quite spectacular, after all, it was just trapped in a small TV. Just like the universe you see on TV, the planets you see are definitely different from what you feel when you are actually in the universe. To be more popular, looking at the beauties on the paper is completely different from seeing the beauties in real life. Now when Jerry stood by the Black Lake and witnessed the mysterious Hogwarts Castle, he really understood why Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry is so famous in the wizarding world. Presumably every wizard who has studied at Hogwarts will never forget the shock when he saw Hogwarts Castle for the first time. No more than 4 people in each boat. At this time, Hagrid pointed to a group of boats with magic lamps moored by the lake, and told the little wizards that they needed to take these boats to cross the Black Lake to Hogwarts. So, the little wizards began to team up and board the boat. There are a lot of small boats, so it is not required that each one is fully loaded, and many little wizards are 2 or 3 together. And Jerry, Hermione and Neville sat in the same boat naturally. Set off. After all the little wizards successfully formed a team, Hagrid, who was sitting alone on the boat, let out a soft drink. All the small boats carrying the little wizards quickly drifted in the direction of Hogwarts Castle under the impetus of the waves of the Black Lake without any manipulation. It's true that rowing doesn't use oars, it's all about waves. Jerry looked at the boats lined up neatly and advancing automatically, and couldn't help but secretly complain. "Jerry, do you know why we took the boat to the castle?" At this moment, Hermione, who was sitting beside her, suddenly raised her small chin and asked Jerry. Apparently, Hermione's characteristic of showing off her knowledge had begun to flare up again. People of the same age may be bored by this, but Jerry, as an adult, will only feel that someone gives him popular science knowledge for free. Isn't this a great thing? I really don't know about this. Jerry replied very truthfully. He really didn't know why the little wizards went to Hogwarts by boat, because that's how he acted in the movies, but it seemed to be replaced by a carriage in the next few movies. However, at that time, all his attention in watching movies was on those magical magic, and who would care about the problem of riding in a carriage and boat? Seeing that Jerry was not clear, Hermione regained her spirits and began to explain to Jerry. I saw in a piece of Hogwarts school history that the first-year students take the boat to the castle, which is actually a kind of inheritance ceremony in memory of the founder of the college. You see, the boat has 4 positions, which symbolize the 4 founders of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and the route we are moving forward is the route that the 4 founders used to find the location of Hogwarts Castle. Quote, "It turned out to be like this. I really learned from life to age." After hearing Hermione's explanation, Jerry found that it was true, but what surprised him even more was how many extracurricular books did Hermione, a little girl, read in a month of summer vacation. It can only be said that she deserves to be Miss Know-It-All, very unattainable. In this way, while listening to Hermione's various science popularizations in his ears, he admired the special scenery of the Black Lake. Jerry crossed the Black Lake in a boat, passed through a dark tunnel under the cliff, gradually slowed down, and stopped at the underground pier of Hogwarts Castle. "Okay, everyone follow me, we are going to the gate of the castle soon." Hagrid walked ahead with the magic lamp, and Jerry waited for the little wizards to get off the boat, and they gathered together to follow behind him. After climbing up and down for half an hour along a path paved with gravel and small cobblestones, they finally came to a flat, wet meadow in the shadow of the castle. And in front of them is a huge oak door, which is also the gate of Hogwarts Castle. Hagrid stepped forward and knocked on the door 3 times, and the door opened immediately, and a tall black-haired witch in emerald green robes appeared behind the door with a serious face. It was the one Jerry was familiar with, the Dean of the Gryffindor, Professor McGonagall. "Freshman, Professor McGonagall. Thank you, Hagrid. Let me pick you up here." After Jerry heard the conversation between the two, Hagrid left first, and Professor McGonagall led them to move on. After stepping over the steps under the oak door, everyone entered the foyer on the first floor of the castle. "Really big." Jerry nodded in agreement when he heard Harry and Ron approaching beside him sigh. "Although it's just a hallway, I don't know if it has been enlarged by casting the untraceable stretch curse. It looks unusually spacious, especially the roof, which has a strange illusion that you can't see the end at a glance. The stone walls around the foyer are filled with blazing torches, illuminating the entire foyer brightly. Directly opposite it is a luxurious marble staircase, which should lead to the 2nd floor. The buzzing voices of hundreds of people could be faintly heard from the door on the right side of the foyer. Jerry estimated that it should be the auditorium on the 1st floor, where the sorting ceremony will be held later. There is a hut on the left side of the foyer. At this time, Professor McGonagall is leading them to step on the bluestone slabs on the ground of the foyer and walk towards that hut. "Welcome to Hogwarts. The opening banquet is about to begin, but before you take your seats in the auditorium, you must first." In the hut, Professor McGonagall first greeted the little wizards, and then began to give a general explanation of the sorting ceremony, the 4 colleges, credits, and the college cup that will start soon. However, she did not explain in detail what the sorting ceremony was based on, and the specific process of sorting, because these little wizards would know in a while. After the lecture, she asked the little wizards to tidy up their clothes in the hut, waited for a while for the sorting ceremony, and left temporarily to go to the auditorium. "Hermione, don't worry, you are so good, there must be no problem with sorting." Jerry looked at Hermione, who had been reciting the 14 spells in the textbook over and over again after Professor McGonagall left, looking very nervous, and comforted her in a low voice helplessly. He knew that the so-called sorting ceremony had nothing to do with magic and spells. It was just wearing a hat, and then the hat would determine which academy you belong to based on your character and bloodline. If you meet the characteristics of multiple colleges, you can also chat with Mr. Hat and choose one you like. Just like in the movie, Harry fits both Gryffindor and Slytherin, but in the end he chose Gryffindor and was sorted into Gryffindor. However, he couldn't tell Hermione that, after all, he couldn't explain why he knew the details of the sorting ceremony. How are they going to put us in exactly which house? There's got to be a test, I suppose. Fred said it hurt us a lot, but I think he was joking. At this time, the conversation between Harry and Ron on the other side also reached Jerry's ears. He took a closer look. There were more than 40 little wizards in the room. Except for some little wizards born in pure blood families like Malfoy, most of the other little wizards were as nervous as Hermione. Because most of them shared Hermione's thinking that the sorting ceremony for a while might be decided by testing magic. However, they are not Hermione. Most of the little wizards are actually the same as Harry and Ron. They have not been able to cast a single spell yet. Even children born in pure-blood wizarding families like Malfoy may have been exposed to magic earlier than those born in Muggle families, but in fact their magic level is not much higher than that of young wizards born in Muggle families go. According to a small video that Jerry saw in A Certain Sound in his previous life, it seems that the magical blood in the little wizard's body will stabilize at the age of 11 before they can learn to cast magic. Moreover, there is no difference in character between children from wizard families and children from ordinary families. Except for Hermione, few children in this age group are interested in calming down and delving into those difficult magical knowledge. Doesn't the broomstick smell good to him? Isn't the magic snack delicious? Isn't he nice to go shopping in Diagon Alley? However, a child born in a wizard family should have a wider range of knowledge. At least the little Marfew and the others will know what the sorting ceremony is all about. It's just that in their view, the panicked look of those Muggle-born little wizards is also a very good landscape. Why tell them the truth? As for Ron and Neville, who were born in the same wizarding family, Ron is because of George and Fred, who are two inferior brothers. Neville has a bad memory. Even if his grandma mentioned it, he may not remember it. Just when the little wizards were immersed in the tension of the sorting house, a few screams suddenly broke the dull atmosphere in the room. Jerry turned his head to look in the direction of the voice. It turned out that there were more than 20 translucent ghosts that came through the wall, flying around above the heads of the little wizards, and waved to them. Okay, come out, line up and follow me, the sorting ceremony is about to begin. At this time, McGonagall reappeared at the door of the hut, and those floating ghosts also filed into the wall and disappeared. This is really, quite a magical scene. Jerry and the little wizards lined up to follow Professor McGonagall into the luxurious auditorium. Looking at the scene in the auditorium, they couldn't help sighing again in their hearts. Probably because it was an important school opening banquet and sorting ceremony, the auditorium was decorated extravagantly. Tens of thousands of candles cast with the floating spell replaced the magic chandelier floating above the auditorium, illuminating the entire auditorium. On the 4 long tables filled with young wizards in the auditorium, golden plates and silver goblets shone under the candlelight. But what surprised Jerry the most was the ceiling of the auditorium. If you don't observe carefully, you will think that the sky above the auditorium is open, because you can see the bright and beautiful galaxy hanging there when you look up. Stopping under the podium between the long tables of the 4 colleges and the long tables of the teachers, Jerry saw that Professor McGonagall first moved a 4-legged stool and put it on the podium. Then another hat was brought in, patched, worn out, and very dirty. This is the old sorting hat that is the same age as Hogwarts. It seems that the sorting hat was originally an ordinary hat of Godric Gryffindor, the founder of Hogwarts. Later, the 4 founders used magic to infuse it with ideas, and it has the ability to help choose a college according to the characteristics of young wizards. Being able to give independent thought and personality to an inanimate substance, Jerry sometimes really felt that the magic in the world of Harry Potter was very powerful. Its power does not lie in its devastating destructive power, but in its very idealism. Without any scientific basis, it is really magical. You may think I'm not pretty. But don't judge a book by its cover. If you can find a more beautiful hat than mine, I can eat myself up. The hat twisted on the stool, and a wide slit opened, like a mouth, and began to sing loudly its own exclusive song of sorting. What's even more outrageous is that after the hat sang, seeing the thunderous applause of the little wizards below, it stood up very gentlemanly, and bowed very gracefully. Have you ever seen a hat bow to you? Certainly not. Jerry saw it for the first time, and he didn't seem to see this scene when he watched a movie in his previous life. Whoever's name I call now, put on the hat, sit on the stool, and wait for the sorting. Professor McGonagall took a few steps forward with the parchment, slowly opened it and said, "Hannah Abbott." A rosy-cheeked little girl with 2 golden braids stumbled out of the queue. "Steal Hannah." Looking at the little girl with the sorting hat sitting on the 4-legged stool, Jerry finally knew what was wrong with him all the time. It turns out that this is not the Harry Potter world of the movie, but the Harry Potter world of the book. Because he remembered clearly that in the movie, Hermione Granger was the first to be sorted, and Hannah Abbott was the first to be sorted in the book. In his previous life, he had seen the stock of Iron-Struck Hannah in many small videos. But the key point is that he only watched those movies on TV in his previous life, and he didn't specifically look for the original book to read. The difference between this movie and the original book shouldn't be that big. Maybe. Hufflepuff. The hat only stayed on the head of the little girl named Hannah for a moment, and then quickly gave the result of the sorting. At this time, among the 4 long tables, the little wizards on the rightmost long table immediately stood up and applauded, welcoming the little girl named Hannah to join Hufflepuff. Susan Bones. Hufflepuff. Terry Boot. Llewellyn Crow. Hermione Granger. After the sorting hat sorted out 7 or 8 little wizards quickly or slowly, Hermione's name was finally called out by the sorting hat. "Come on." With Jerry cheering, Hermione ran all the way to the podium. Gryffindor. The sorting hat hesitated, but seemed to sense something, and finally called out Gryffindor. And Hermione happily ran to the long Gryffindor table on the far left, which was filled with applause and laughter. Jerry Carmen. As soon as Hermione finished her assignment, Professor McGonagall's name came out of Jerry's mouth. After straightening his wizard robes, he walked to the podium with unhurried steps, picked up the sorting hat and put it on his head. "I want to share." Just like Harry in the movie, Jerry proposed to the sorting hat that he wanted to be assigned to Gryffindor, but the moment the sorting hat touched his hair, it directly reported the sorting result. Slytherin. Slytherin. Walter, Falker. Hearing the results reported by the sorting hat, Jerry felt like 10,000 horses galloped past in his heart. He only felt that all the plans he had thought up before were completely shattered after the sound of the sorting hat. Stiffly taking off the sorting hat, looking at Professor McGonagall's expression full of regret, Jerry walked helplessly towards the long table of Slytherin in the 2nd row on the right. On the other side of the Gryffindor table, Hermione also had a disappointed look on her face when she saw that Jerry was assigned to Slater. She really wanted to be in Gryffindor with Jerry, but she didn't expect that this rare and special friend would be sorted into Slytherin by the sorting hat. But she still suppressed her disappointment and waved to Jerry over there. Because she knew that Jerry actually wanted to be assigned to Gryffindor, but now he is assigned to Slytherin, and he must be very sad. Look, you can tell a thing or two from his stiff expression just now. How could Jerry be assigned to Slytherin, wizards who have turned bad, but there is no one who is not from Slytherin? In the team, Ron, who hadn't been sorted yet, saw Jerry being sorted into Slytherin, and said to Harry beside him in disbelief, "Jerry is not a bad guy, don't forget, he helped us teach that Malfoy guy a lesson on the train." Although Harry didn't have a good impression of Slytherin because of Ron's indoctrination, it didn't prevent him from being very grateful to Jerry for his righteous act on the train. So even if Jerry was assigned to Slytherin, he still felt that Jerry couldn't be a bad guy. "Oh, I know, I don't think Jerry is a bad guy, I just think that the sorting hat seems to be in the wrong place, and Jerry should be sorted into Gryffindor." Ron shrugged. At this moment, the little Malfoy on the podium was also sorted into Slytherin by the sorting hat. Seeing this, Harry couldn't help but nodded. Slytherin should be suitable for a guy like Malfoy. Why Slytherin? It's not scientific. Jerry, who was sitting on the long Slytherin table, didn't have the mood to watch the sorting ceremony at this moment, but frowned and began to think about why he was instantly identified as a Slytherin by the sorting hat. Thinking carefully about the various remarks about Slater, he gradually had a little understanding in his heart. The most basic condition to enter Slytherin, then must be pure blood or mixed blood, that is, either both parents are wizards, or at least one of them must be a wizard. Like a little wizard whose parents are muggles, such as Hermione, no matter how good he is, it is absolutely impossible to be assigned to Slytherin. Then look at Jerry, who are Jerry's parents in this world. That doesn't exist at all. His body is a strange panel, brought from the main world of Marvel, and the blood of the wizard in his body is also exchanged with the little red star. So Jerry guessed that the wizard blood he exchanged with the little red star might be the purest and oldest wizard blood. After all, the strange panel was able to bring him from the Marvel world to the Harry Potter world, and the wizard's blood that was unreasonably exchanged was still a mess. It's not that mixed blood is bad, but he personally thinks that pure blood wizard blood should have a higher upper limit of growth than mixed blood wizard blood. For example, the magic power will be more than that of Piers. Because the top Dumbledore and Greenwald seem to be pure blood. Of course, the strength of strength mainly depends on the understanding and application of magic. Those slight advantages of magic power are nothing. Voldemort, Snape, and Professor McGonagall were all born of mixed blood, but they were still very powerful, especially Voldemort, who was second only to Dumbledore and Grindelwald. In fact, people like Hermione can be considered mixed blood, but the concentration may not be so high. For wizards born in Muggle families, Jerry felt that one of the ancestors of both parents must have had wizards, but the wizard blood of the descendants had not awakened. From the perspective of personality, Slytherin's wizard characteristics, in the eyes of outsiders, are arrogant, very ambitious, scheming, and like to fight for power and profit. These, Jerry felt that he did not meet. But he thought about it carefully, and it seemed that interpreting Slytherin like that was too one-sided. Perhaps a comment about Slytherin that he accidentally saw on the internet was more suitable for his current situation. It was mentioned in that comment that the one who can really represent Slytherin should be Professor Slughorn, who appeared in the 6th grade. Pursue fame and fortune, like to accept celebrities as students, but will not take the initiative to hurt others. Forming a slug club is also a mutual benefit with outstanding students to achieve a win-win situation. Supporting the blood theory, but not a brainless supporter, he also admires the Muggle-born but excellent Hermione and Harry's mother Lily. Very smart, he will judge the situation and ensure that his own interests will not be damaged, but he also has his own bottom line. As a Slytherin in the final battle, he firmly stood on Hogwarts' side. Therefore, Slytherin should be an egoist with a bottom line, a selfish person who will not take the initiative to hurt others. If you look at it this way, it seems that there is a point that can match him who has resurrected his life. Pure blood, coupled with the most authentic character in his heart and his current actions with strong purpose. Is it because of this that the Sorting Hat judged him to be a Slytherin? Gah, now that things are going on, we can only take one step at a time. At present, these analyses are all deduced by Jerry himself based on the results. Whether it is true or not, he is not sure. After all, it stands to reason that the sorting of the Sorting Hat is subjectively based on the innermost thoughts of the little wizard, and he obviously wants to go to Gryffindor. Could it be that it was actually Slytherin that he wanted to go to in the back of his mind? Forget it, there is no need to worry about this now. Since I have been assigned to Slytherin, I can only study magic at Hogwarts as a Slytherin. He looked up at the Professor McGonagall on the podium who had gotten along well with him before. Looking at the teacher's long table, Professor Snape, who looked gloomy, harsh, indifferent and mean like a big bat, Jerry couldn't help but sigh again. It's really a plan that can't keep up with the changes. The basket of Gryffindor strategies that he made before was useless now, so he could only use his brain again to replan a Slytherin route. But after thinking about it carefully, becoming a Slytherin wasn't a bad thing at all. At least Snape, while harsh and mean to the wizards of other houses, especially Gryffindor, was very friendly to the young wizards of his own house. Besides, Snape was proficient in all kinds of black magic. If he could get on good terms with him, he might have the opportunity to learn a lot of more lethal black magic. Harry Potter. Gryffindor. At this moment, the well-known and much anticipated Harry also communicated with the Sorting Hat for a while, and was assigned to Gryffindor as fate. At this point, the sorting ceremony officially ended. Student Della, I didn't expect you to be assigned to Slytherin, we are really destined. Jerry, who came back to his senses, looked at the little Malfoy trio who were sitting far away from him. With a move in his eyes, he immediately walked over and squeezed in between them, and then enthusiastically put his arms on their shoulders superior. Yes, fate. Of course I'm a Slytherin, how can you be a Slytherin? Little Malfoy's body froze suddenly, his face convulsed and forced a smile. Just when he saw Jerry being assigned to Slytherin, he almost swears on the spot. He couldn't figure out why a rude man like Jerry could be assigned to a noble and elegant Slytherin. However, in view of the fighting skills on the other side's train that used 1vs3 to torture them, after the sorting ended, he still held back his anger and took Goyle and Crabbe to sit away from Jerry. 10 years is not too late for a gentleman to take revenge. Fighting with his body is not the behavior that an elegant Slytherin wizard should have. After he has learned magic well, he must let the other party know what the price will be if he angers a noble Malfoy. Della K, you seem to have a good relationship. At this time, the short-haired little witch sitting opposite Malfoy looked at Jerry and Malfoy hugging each other with a surprised expression. That is, I met Della Cole, Goyle, and Crabbe on the train, and we became good friends at that time, don't you think? Jerry squinted, and put a little effort into Malfoy's and Goyle's arms. As if recalling some bad memories, the three of them shook their bodies at the same time, and then nodded reluctantly. Hi, my name is Jerry Carmen. Pansy Parkinson. Jerry took his right hand off Goyle's shoulder and reached for Pansy. Pansy froze for a moment, but still reached out and shook Jerry lightly. With Malfoy's arrogance, the friends he would like to make must be excellent pure-blood family wizards, but, Jerry Carmen, why hasn't he heard of this name before? The dinner party begins. At this moment, the headmaster Dumbledore, who was sitting in the middle of the teachers' long table, slowly got up and announced loudly. As Dumbledore's voice fell, Jerry found that all kinds of steaming and fragrant delicacies appeared on the empty gold plates in front of him. Roast beef, roast chicken, pork chops, lamb chops, sausages, steaks. The silver goblet is also filled with different types of beverages such as fruit juice and milk. This culinary magic, it seems that I will spend time learning it in the future. Seeing these delicacies that suddenly appeared, Jerry's eyes lit up, and he immediately decided to add cooking magic to his magic learning plan. After learning cooking magic, when he returns to the main world, he can greatly reduce the time he spends cooking every day. By the way, there are also those magics that can take care of housework, and they can't be left behind. Planning all kinds of magic that he would learn in the future, Jerry didn't stop his body movements. Like other hungry little wizards, his stomach was already growling. He didn't know if it was because he was too hungry, or because the house elf's cooking magic was really good. He felt that the delicacies on the table were particularly delicious today. Pansy, long time no see, you cut your hair short. While Jerry was eating, Malfoy pretended to talk to Pansy, and quietly moved his position. Della K, you actually noticed it, does it look good? Pansy blushed slightly. It's pretty good. With a glance, Jerry saw little Malfoy walking away from him, smiled to himself and didn't stop him. The effect he wanted had already been achieved, and it didn't matter whether Malfoy sat next to him or not. What? Just when a piece of steak was cut in half, Jerry suddenly heard the screams of the little wizards. Looking up, he found that several young wizards in the same grade as Malfoy were all looking at him in horror. Turning his head in doubt, he saw a haggard, hollow-eyed, scary-looking ghost, wearing a silver blood-stained robe, sitting next to him at some point. Hello, I'm Jerry Kamen, a freshman in Slytherin. Jerry smiled, gracefully put down the knife and fork in his hand, and nodded slightly to the ghost next to him in greeting. The ghost turned its head and glanced at Jerry with some surprise. It was the first time he met a freshman who was not afraid of himself. There was a hint of appreciation on his terrifying face. Borrow, or you can call me Bloody Barrow like other ghosts, I am the ghost of Slytherin, you are welcome to join Slytherin. Thanks. After a brief chat, Jerry continued to eat the steak calmly. As an adult, especially if he has experienced life and death, and his subordinates have had human lives, he will not be frightened by a ghost. Seeing that Jerry was not afraid at all, and chatting with the terrifying ghost so elegantly and calmly, most of Slater Liny's first graders, including some second-year little wizards, showed admiration. Among all the ghosts at Hogwarts, Bloody Barrow is the ghost that all young wizards are afraid of. Even some less courageous wizards will be scared to cry by his terrifying expression when they meet Bloody Barrow alone. And Bloody Barrow is also the most powerful ghost among Hogwarts ghosts. Even the fearless prank elf Peeves dare not disobey the order of Bloody Barrow. At this time, a blonde little witch sitting opposite Gore and Crab looked at Jerry, who was eating steak elegantly at this time, touched another very strong little witch next to her and said in a low voice, "Millicent, do you think he looks so handsome?" "Daphne, I still think Goyle is more handsome." The burly Millicent turned his head to look at Jerry, then looked at Goyle opposite him and replied, "The little blonde witch." In this way, after the brief turmoil of the ghosts, the dinner entered into a warm atmosphere again. Everyone ate delicious food, drank drinks, introduced themselves, and communicated with each other. Different from those on the next table, those Muggle-born little wizards talked about their various wonderful experiences after receiving the admission letter from Hogwarts. Most of the chat content of the Little Slytherin Wizards Where Jerry Belongs is related to topics that can highlight their identities, such as the wealth of their families and the social status of their parents. Among them, the family with the highest status is obviously Malfoy's family, one of the ancient 28 sacred families. Malfoy is also the school director of Hogwarts, and has close relations with high-ranking officials of the Ministry of Magic. And the richest is a boy named Blaise Chabini. His mother, Madame Zabini, was a beautiful, famous witch who had 7 husbands. Because each husband will leave a large inheritance to the mother and son when he dies, the family is even richer than the Malfoy family. When the dinner came to an end, Dumbledore got up again and warned all the little wizards a few precautions for the start of school. Jerry summed it up: the main thing is to prohibit going to the dangerous Forbidden Forest, and not to cast magic in the corridor between classes. Those who are above the 2nd grade who volunteer to participate in the Quidditch selection can find Ms. Hooch to sign up in the 2nd week. And most importantly, no one is allowed to go to the right corridor on the 4th floor. After talking about the precautions, it is time to sing the school song. With a wave of Dumbledore's wand, a long golden ribbon appeared out of nowhere, and then twisted and coiled high like a snake to form lines of the school song. When the school song ended, the opening dinner officially ended. "All first-year freshmen follow me. I am your prefect, Gemma Farley, and I will take you to the lounge." When the dinner was over, on the long Slytherin table, a girl about 14 or 15 years old stood up in a robe and called out to the somewhat dazed Slytherin freshmen. Hearing this, the little wizards immediately gathered around the girl, followed her through the crowd, and walked towards the Slytherin lounge. "Hey, isn't the Slytherin lounge above the castle?" Jerry mixed in with the little wizards. Seeing the prefect named Gemma lead them towards the basement, he couldn't help but feel a little surprised inwardly. He remembered that in the movie, Harry and the others seemed to walk up some automatically moving stairs, and then entered the lounge through the portrait of the fat lady. Gryffindor's and Ravenclaw's lounges are in the 8th tower, and Hufflepuff's and our Slytherin's lounges are in the basement, but I can tell you that our Slytherin's lounges are definitely the best, and you'll find out in a while already. At this time, Gemma, who was the leader explaining some school precautions, happened to talk about the location of the lounge, which solved Jerry's doubts. Entering the dungeon on the right side of the grand marble staircase in the foyer, through a maze of dark corridors, Jerry soon saw a stone wall. "Noble." Following Gemma, the leader, set a password to the stone wall. A stone door immediately appeared on the originally empty and wet stone wall, and opened slowly. The only way to enter the common room is through the password, which will be changed every 2 weeks, and the new password will be notified in advance on the bulletin board in the lounge. Remember, the password for these 2 weeks is, Noble. Quote. Gemma explained to the little wizards with a somewhat haughty and proud tone. The little wizards also nodded proudly. Obviously, they recognized Slytherin's password very much. As expected of a Slytherin. Jerry looked at everyone with their chins raised, showing a coquettish expression. For some reason, he felt that these little wizards of Slater looked quite cute. Following the little wizards into the common room, the first thing that catches the eye is the chained magic lamps glowing green, and the decorations made of animal skulls hanging on the wall. His first impression was, so green. What kind of weird aesthetic is this Slytherin? But it's not without advantages. At least the fireplace, sofa, tables and chairs in the Slytherin common room look very delicate, and there are all kinds of beautiful carvings on them. And there is a medieval tapestry hanging on the wall opposite the fireplace, which depicts the famous adventures of the Slytherin people at that time, which is also very interesting to look at. Of course, what interests Jerry the most is the large window that occupies 2/3 of the wall opposite the stone door in the common room. Looking out from the big window, he could directly see the bottom of the black lake, huge squid and various creatures in the lake, swimming leisurely through the window, giving him the illusion of going to the aquarium in his previous life. It turned out that Slytherin's common room was built under the Black Lake, and magical magic was used to isolate the infiltration of the lake water. Let the Slytherins who live here feel the mystery of a shipwreck underwater at any time. Boys go to the room on the left, girls go to the right. Your schedule should already be in the room. If you have any questions, come to me later. Gemma looked at the little wizards standing in front of the big window, looking at the scenery outside in amazement, and left with a final confession. The view from the window is amazing, but the little wizards were exhausted today, and after a while, they dispersed to find their own rooms. Jerry is no exception. He left the common room earlier than those little wizards, and walked to the boys' dormitory on the left. At the door of every male dormitory, the name of the little wizard living in was posted, so he quickly found his own dormitory. Jerry Carmen, Delico Malfoy, Gregory Gower, Vincent Crabbe. Looking at the 4 names posted on the door of the dormitory, Jerry smiled helplessly. These 3 children and I are really destined. Thanks for watching, please subscribe and support my channel.